All right, it's been a month since the market started to break down, and I wanted to go through a very quick reality check 1 month after the crash and see, who was saying what right around the time of the crash, what was the best course of action according to a number of individuals that you may be following on crypto Twitter, and then of course what I was doing and what I was saying for BNB members to be paying attention to. So first of all, what the quote unquote analysts on crypto Twitter were saying. And I'm going to kind of organize this from least credible and probably the opinion of many people to most credible, just to sort of give you the full perspective of the picture. So Elio Trade said Black Friday on October 11th, right? Before that, his clear bias was that altcoin season was right around the corner going into things. Proof alt season is actually coming now, blah, 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 blah. Super cycle, alt season is about to hit like a truck. Again, not looking very good for you, Mr. Elio Trades. Then we look at altcoin daily. You'll be a crypto millionaire, October 12th. Crypto basics, buy fear, sell greed. Well, depending on what you were buying there, you're probably not too happy now. Ethereum's on the road to 10K. Doesn't look like it to be. It doesn't look like it's the case after what happened on this particular crash, in my opinion. And I stated that very clearly to members of BNB, and then saying here, road to 1 million on Bitcoin, which eventually will happen, right? But again, interesting timing on those posts. Okay, so let's go over to Lark Davis here. He posted this on October 13th. And I want you to pay attention to these dates, right? This is right around the time of the crash, right afterwards. And I'll show you exactly what I was saying on these exact same days. Zoom out on ETH and the structure is clear, right? It's now coiling inside a bullish pennant. If the consolidation resolves upward, right? Boom, we're going to go to 7K. Solana got slapped back to multi-year resistance. We're basically stuck between them, but one of them is about to give. Okay. Yes, saying basically he thinks it's going to go back to the highs or could break down back to the lows. Okay. 2 rate cuts still coming in 2025. The Fed looking to NQT in the coming months. Tsunami of altcoin ETFs approvals coming, and you still think the crypto market is topped. Everything is lining up for crypto. Here's how, October 16th. Okay. So some bullish, some bearish takes in there. Again, kind of just sort of painting both scenarios, as most people do, but not really giving you a clear picture. I could kind of tell from reading these posts that he was more bullish than bearish on the market as a whole. Ash Crypto saying this was the largest liquidation event in crypto history, but this will also be the bottom for most altcoins. If you study previous market cycles, you know that once all the leverage is flushed and done, the market forms the bottom and actually explodes because all the leg and panic selling is done. Okay, interesting take. Bitcoin's macro bullish structure remains intact. Well, at that point, it still was intact, but now we're flirting below the 50-week moving average, and I'll show you that in a few minutes when we get into the charts. All right, historically, every time it's bounced, well, it's not bouncing right now. ETH weekly candle closed above 4,100, well above support, bullish structure intact. 5,000 is coming already early November, right? Tension easing is bullish. Bitcoin dominance is crashing hard. Altcoins will come back stronger. ETH is showing insane strength. This is a good sign for altcoin recovery, right? Okay, well, none of this proved to be true in the following weeks after the crash either. So again, I don't see any alpha here. Don't really see any alpha here. Again, no alpha here. Definitely no alpha here. So what the analysts were saying were not helpful for any of you guys, I'm sure. Let's keep going. Raoul Paul, one of my favorites to bash on recently, just because, I mean, man, this guy can't catch a break in terms of making any real good calls in crypto this cycle, or even late stages of last cycle. So at some point, Raoul, we'll meet. We'll talk about this kind of stuff. But for the time being, not super impressed with your public work here. Desperately trying to move money out of bank into crypto, near impossible to in any reasonable time. Right? Saying, time to buy the dip on October 11th, which, arguably like dips like that are good to buy. It depends on what you're buying, right? In that case, Bitcoin, Ethereum, for example, those are your buying opportunities. If you're trying to buy oversold sell-offs to, sell on the bounce, then potentially also a good opportunity. But, most of the time, if you look at all the assets that were sort of selling off in that day, they're all lower now. So not a good move there. All said and done, regardless of what sparked it, Friday was a flash crash. Flash crashes usually recover in V-shapes back to their prior price range and usually go to make new highs. In this case, we entirely wiped out accumulated leverage 2. Higher. Wrong. We did not go higher. Well, that was a gift for anyone who had stables. Well, now Sui's way lower than it was there. Crypto total market cap did look okay after the crash, right? He is kind of right here. But again, Being overly bullish, never talking about the downside risks, right? Never talks about the downside risks, doesn't talk about the downside risks, doesn't talk about the downside risks, doesn't talk about the downside risks. None of these talk about the downside risks. These were all bullish pieces of, analytical content, if you want to call it that. And then here's in August, he was talking about being full port into ETH, right? I mean, you could say some of this made sense around the time, but when the charts invalidate your thesis, it's probably a good idea to change your reasoning and your bias and flip the other direction, which I just don't see really anyone doing on crypto Twitter that are perma bulls, right? There's some perma bears, there's some perma bulls. There's not that many people like me in the middle that are okay with either outcome and just, let's make the most of what the market gives us. Here, so it appears the crypto market's liquidated anyone with greed and now want to grind down anyone with hope. Yep, it's been frustrating. This grind is longer than expected, but it will pass. Don't fuck this up, right? The spice will flow. Whether the market comes back anytime soon or not, it just doesn't really matter for the people who follow this guy because they're just buying and buying and buying and buying crap that's underperforming Bitcoin. Right? As soon as ETH starts to underperform Bitcoin, you cut it. That's what I did. SUI, underperforming Bitcoin, you don't hold it anymore. Doge, XRP, the same process applies to all of these coins, the same framework. If it's underperforming Bitcoin, you got to cut it. How come nobody on crypto Twitter ever talks about that, right? Nobody ever talks about protecting yourself against the downside of a market that makes it pretty easy to take your money from you if you're not strategic and if you're not careful. Now, we all know Alex Becker. I could have thrown in, this whole video could have been Alex Becker and bad calls from him over the course of this cycle. Again, I'm not impressed with any of these people and what they've been saying. Checks prices looks deeply into alt season denier souls. Where's that altcoin season, Alex? I'm not seeing it. And then, many people in the space that are offering crypto consulting, crypto coaching, products and services, saying, hey, buy the dip to their members, to their clients. This is the time to get bullish, right? I watched this podcast, for example. I wasn't really that impressed with, what was talked about here in terms of buying the dip and the next phase of the cycle is just upon us. And same thing with here, like even the title, reset before the next bull run, right? I mean, I think that was a massive warning sign, that reset, not a signal for, hey, bull run's about to start because we've wiped out all of the leverage. So that's what a lot of people were talking about on Twitter. This is a quick video. I didn't put a lot of crazy effort into, sourcing all of these and making it all perfect and line up perfectly for you guys because it is Friday. The market is volatile right now. Got to worry about what's going on in BNB and making sure members are prepared. And we're looking at a lot of different opportunities that we're, starting to scale into. I won't say whether that's crypto or equities. You can come find out for yourself. But I want to talk about my analysis of the situation inside of BNB. I want to share with you guys what we were talking about at the exact same time as everyone was saying this, right? What we were saying. So first of all, this is a public piece that I posted on Twitter in early September, so you can kind of understand where my head was at in September of this year. I said, everyone's dreaming of altcoin season, right? We've got Bitcoin dominance going sideways for 5 weeks, meaning zero new money flowing into alts. But the reality is that every major alt is printing identical bearish patterns. XRP, lower highs. Link, lost support, lower highs. Uni, lower highs, lost support. Aave rolling over. Again, all of these coins are down way more than where they were in September, right? So I said, hey, everyone's talking about altcoin season or dreaming about altcoin season, but until it materializes and the charts show us that that's actually the phase of the market that we're in, we're not in altcoin season. So therefore, you shouldn't be sized up like crazy into altcoins. And you can watch this. There's a video that's on this channel. You can go back and you can see exactly what I said and what my strategy had been up until that point and into October for capturing outperformance against Bitcoin while the market's moving sideways and up. And this was pretty much spot on, right? And so you can see now, here's October 13th, we're in the group. This was 2 days after the crash happened. This was the first Monday. And on the weeklies, Bitcoin and ETH did close pretty decent weekly candles, right? So they didn't close any weekly candles that looked overly concerning at that point. They didn't look amazing, but they didn't look incredibly, incredibly bearish, right? But I said, hey, the vast majority of altcoins do not look attractive after their weekly closes as shown in a variety of examples. There's only a few exceptions to be made. I will save the rest of my updates for tomorrow, right? You can see what I said here. I ended up actually de-risking a decent amount of my ETH position on that Sunday in anticipation of the potential for there to be a red week in the crypto markets. And again, that's more or less what we got. So I said, hey, just practicing my risk management here. I'm sizing down on my ETH. I'm not bearish on it overall yet, right? But then what happened as we got into the week? Well, the market started to move lower. Bearish retests were being shown across the board. There wasn't a lot of strength. The stock market was moving higher. Crypto market was moving lower. So I ended up getting rid of my remaining ETH position completely at 39.65. I cut Bitmine from my portfolio. I cut MicroStrategy. I cut essentially everything from my portfolio that wasn't Bitcoin over the course of, the imminent, let's say 72 hours post this crash happening. And in that 72-hour period, I identified a lot of damage, structural damage that had happened to the crypto market that wasn't telling me that there was an imminent bounce coming anytime soon. Right, you can see my updated portfolio view here by Wednesday, October 15th. So just a few days after the crash, right? This is a month ago, right? I'm cash and I'm Bitcoin, right? Who was all cash and all Bitcoin at this point? This is where most people that if they had this much cash, which most people don't in crypto, they would have gone, I'm all in, I'm buying all these alts in the dip. And, a month later where you'd be today, you'd be in the red, quite a bit on all those positions. And even if you bought a lot of Bitcoin on that dip, you'd still be in the red, right? As of today. So for me specifically, I don't see many people, being this conservative this quickly when these declines start to happen in the market, at least specifically this decline, and going, hey guys, let's be cautious about where the market is right now. And at the end of this week, right? So this is all the moves that I made within the week, or some of the moves I made within the week from the group, all time-stamped here. At the end of the week, I posted this right before our live call, which I do at the end of every week. And I say, hey guys, this is what I want you to know that's upcoming from the call, just so you're aware once we get onto the call, because the market was, really volatile this week. And some people had not been fully up to date with what I was saying. So if you go in here, this is the slides that I pulled out of the presentation for you guys to check out. Current state of the crypto markets. Crypto markets are experiencing continued selling pressure and remain fragile 1 week after the October 11th crash. Bitcoin and ETH are testing critical support levels. Sentiment is in the fear zone and institutional flows show caution. While some positioning shows traders are betting on a rebound, the market has failed to sustain rallies and remains vulnerable to further downside if key support levels continue to break. So then I showed everybody the weekly altcoin charts, weekly Bitcoin chart, etc. And I said, all of these altcoins look very, very toasted right now. They do not look good. They're not in a good position for immediate term upside. I would be very, very cautious if I was a holder. Now, given I'm not a holder of altcoins at this point, right? As you can see in my portfolio, as you can see going all the way back to my tweet up here, I was not bullish and holding heavy amounts of altcoins. I was just swinging in and out of altcoins based off of what was outperforming, right? That had been my strategy for a long time leading up to this point. Now we get to here and I'm saying, hey, if I was in those alts, I would be very, very cautious, because some people, of course, are just deep in altcoins because that's never going to change from their positioning perspective in crypto, regardless of being in BNB or not. But my conclusion was that the vast majority of the altcoin market look to be entering and sustaining bear market territory. Again, we fast forward to 1 month now. What are we looking at? We're looking at that. Bitcoin is on the verge of losing its weekly bull market support band, currently testing the 200-day moving average. Right? Not good. ETH is performing sideways against BTC, but not far off of its weekly bull market support band. Okay. Again, true. This leads me to partially conclude that there is no active spot long opportunity in this market. But let's see the weekly closes first, right? This was bang on the money, 100% correct, right? And I said, this is my warning signal to anyone still invested in the altcoin market to understand where the technicals are pointing us right now. I would not want to be stuck holding the bag. For what reason? Right. And, this is real. This is what I posted in the group. These are not doctored screenshots or, after the fact statements. This is what I posted in the group, October 17th, 10:44 a.m. Dubai time. This is me warning people in real time. Hey, if you still have positioning and you're not following what I'm doing, you should be careful, because there's warning signs across the market. And then I said for Bitcoin specifically, and I'm a holder of Bitcoin regardless of what it does, I said there's no guarantee that a crypto bear market will have the same drawdown effects as Bitcoin from prior cycles, but the opposite is also true. Essentially, make a plan. Hold Bitcoin at your own risk, your level of comfort, your goals, your tax implications, etc. And, for you, come up with a plan that makes sense for holding Bitcoin if you're going to hold on to it and you want to be that, or you want to have that as part of your strategy. If you want to de-risk, this is the time to make your plan, right? Now people are trying to make their plan a month later going, oh, Bitcoin's below 100K and I don't know what to do, and I'm not sure if I should sell or if I should buy more or what. Like, if you don't have a plan going into these scenarios, how can you expect yourself to make wise decisions? Well, I told people, hey, this is the time to start making a plan, and anyone who needed help, they reached out to me and I helped them. All right. So let's go over to TradingView and let's look at the market now. And I'm going to walk you through some of the technical components that told me that we should be cautious. All right. So here's Bitcoin, and I'm just going to get rid of all these boxes first of all. Here's Bitcoin on the daily. Here's that big crash, October 10th, right? Here was Saturday. Here was our Sunday rebound. Sunday, Monday rebound. What did we get? Bearish retest of the 50-day moving average. We started to roll over on Tuesday, right? Continued lower. Then started to bounce off the 200-day moving average, moved back up, rejected off the 50-day again, bounced off the 200-day, rejected off the 50-day again, back down here, bouncing off the 200-day, and then finding resistance on this 20-day, this white line, right? The 50-day is the red line. The white line is the 20-day moving average. We start to roll over, boom, boom, boom. Look at where we are now, right? So it was right in here that I was saying, this is right where I was de-risking, by the way, on ETH and any sort of remaining exposure in my portfolio outside of Bitcoin, crypto stocks, everything like that. De-risking here, boom, saying, hey guys, this is the time where we need to be cautious on what's going on in this market right now. We need to be cautious, right? Every time we came back up here, I said, hey, there's potential, but if we gotta close above the 50-day, we gotta close above this range of prior resistance, right? Which at one point was actually support for a little bit here and there, but we have to close back above these ranges, and we did not, right? So we did not. I said, hey, another opportunity here to be careful, de-risk, etc. Started to lose these levels. I said, be careful. Look at where we are now, right? So this is why it matters to understand technicals, because technicals can tell you a more clear, instant picture of what's going on versus all of the noise and the narrative on Twitter. Everything on the left side of my presentation, noise. This is all noise. This didn't help anyone make any good decisions, right? This was signal, pure signal front to back, helped people make fantastic decisions with their money to make sure they stayed on the right side of the market and its risks, right? That's what you want to do. You want to stay on the right side of the market and whatever risks it's presenting to you so that you don't get yourself in a position where you have to be panic selling on a day like today or not knowing what to do, right? Or being in a position where you can take your profits before the market takes them back from you, right? That's what I'm urging here. Let's go back to TradingView and let's look at ETH, for example, right? Well, ETH, during that period of time, right? Big rebound, rejected at the 20-day moving average, right? Boom, not good. This is where I'm de-risking ETH right here. Same thing here, rejected at the 50-day on a bounce, right? Although it did sort of start to build a base, it very soon lost that base recently, right? So again, you don't want to be bag holding ETH all the way back down, right? I wasn't interested in bag holding ETH all the way back down after I'd loaded up on it heavy during this period of time here, only to ride it all the way back down to sort of where my higher initial entry buys were. Doesn't make sense, right? Doesn't make sense for me at all. It doesn't make sense for a lot of you guys. Again, I talked about this concept of, let's look at this on a weekly chart just so you can see exactly what I was talking about that specific week. And I'm going to hone in and I'm just going to look at the 50 week, which is super, super important here. I said, hey, the altcoin market, if it doesn't close above its 50-week moving averages, that's not a good idea or not a good sign for the market, right? Not a good idea to be a holder here. We didn't see that. Boom, we didn't see that here on Link, for example. Same thing with Sol, right? Flirting with that 50-week, most recently has lost it. XRP, closed below the 50-week, stayed below the 50-week. Aerodrome, closed below the 50-week, still has been sideways ever since then. Hyperliquid doesn't have a 50-week. Tau, right? One of the coins that actually closed above it, but now is rolled over again, right? BNB, for example, not anywhere close to its 50-week yet, was on a big run. Zcash, outlier in the market. XMR, outlier in the market, right? I marked those down in that chat. You can see. Now, if we look at the rest of the market, I don't think Pengu has a 50-week, right? Let's go to, no, Aster doesn't. Sui, right? Sui, for example, Raoul Paul is really bullish on this one. Closed below its 50-week right off of that first week. Second week, it's below it. It's continued to go. So when all coins are below their 50-week moving average, they're not in a bull market, right? I mean, this is a very clear example. Look at Sui, right? When it's above its 50-week and it's holding its 50-week, okay, those are buying opportunities. When we're trading below the 50-week, you want to be cautious. Chainlink, same thing. Below the 50-week moving average is a bear market, right? So most alts, technically speaking, are in a bear market and have been in a bear market ever since losing their 50 weeks, which I was very, very vocal about in BNB, saying, hey guys, a lot of these altcoins are losing their 50-week moving averages, or they've already lost their 50-week moving average on the weekly close we had a few days ago, speaking as if it was Monday, October 13th. And what happened? The market continued to go lower. Bitcoin's gone lower. Altcoins have gone lower. Some have had some bounces. They've all ended up rolling over, even on the bounces, right? Everything, even Zcash rolling over as of this week. Curve rolling over, right? Everything on this list rolling over. And I banging the table telling members, guys, you've got to be careful, right? You've got to be careful if you're holding altcoin exposure. The market's going into a choppy period. We've done some damage structurally on this liquidation that we saw. And ultimately, a month later, looking at where we are today, I am super, super happy to have stuck my neck out and made the tough decisions and posted this stuff and positioned in real time to avoid all of this while this crap was happening on Twitter. All right. So if you're stuck in this camp and you don't know what to do because you're watching all this crap content from people that either don't know what they're talking about, don't really care about the outcome for you as the reader, viewer, user, whatever you are in their ecosystem, or just at the end of the day, are biased and can't look at the market any other way, then you're in a losing scenario versus people here in BNB that are getting analysis for both sides of the market. When we're bullish, we're bullish. When we're neutral, we're neutral. When we're bearish, right? So it just doesn't really make sense to me for anyone to be, going on Twitter and finding their information when they've got money in the market. If you got a few $1,000, then, maybe you're just trying it out. But if you've got 50, 100, 250,000, 500,000, $1 million in your portfolio and you're still flying blind, like what are you doing, right? What are you doing compared to paying a very small fraction of your portfolio to join a group like BNB or to join BNB? I'm not saying join a group like BNB. There's no other groups like BNB in my opinion. Then, if you're not willing to do that, then I think you're just flying blind and you don't necessarily care too much about the capital that you have invested in the market, or you're just biased and thinking that you can figure it out yourself with, Twitter, free YouTube videos. Everyone who joins BNB, what do they tell me? I've been getting my crypto information from YouTube and Twitter, and then I realized it wasn't real. Then I found your YouTube channel, or I found your Instagram, and then you had a different approach and I liked it. Here we are. So again, with that being said, if you're looking for more of these videos, which are different, which show that the way that we view markets in BNB is unlike the rest of the crypto ecosystem and crypto analysts, influencers, et cetera, if you want to work with a real professional investor, myself, Bull Market Blueprint is the place for you to be. I'm posting these videos twice weekly. Hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you guys in the next video. And if you haven't yet, make sure to go back and watch some of these videos that I was posting in September. Waiting on altcoin season, financial suicide, right? Very truthful here. Everything you've been told about crypto is a lie. Go watch that one. Altcoin season is dead. Go watch that one. Emergency, Bitcoin breaking critical level, right? So I've posted many important updates for you guys for free. Do not take them lightly when I put them out. They're important to watch. And if you want the real-time insider scoop on exactly what's going on in the markets every single day, you're going to want to be in BNB. You can scan this QR code to apply, or you can visit us at bullmarketblueprint.com to go over everything that we do. You can read our Trustpilot reviews here. You can see what people are saying as recently as 2 days ago. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Cheers.